On Sundays, there's a constant equality to the air of time that floats you through the absence of traffic and into the perceptual properties of lilac. Leaves and air make speculation pause amongst obscure and barely remembered conjugations, while grammars without the need of subject pronouns silence thoughts and glaze the space between carrots. All in all, not a bad place to shuffle along the mortal coil. But in the corners, as any shelf knows, the magic of the hearth lies in the smudge and not in the total indifference of the sleeping cats. Because with jugglers throwing and catching spoons, sadly it is not always easy to measure the ingredients, especially while stirring. See, the bottom and the top are different. The top will bubble while the bottom will stick and burn, though you wouldn't know it hidden as it is. But it was to the bottom that she jumped and was caught behind the stones of medieval monasteries, where Romani, Farigola, Arenga, and Alfabrega lined shelves with olive oil. Always with olive oil. Kind of culinary alchemy, where even towers of strength become last names. But catering apart, when the supremacy of testicles is challenged, a spouseless rabbi was never going to be an easy anchovy to hide amongst the breadsticks, at least not without heavy editing and a miracle taken from the well and fermented. I mean, something had to be done to shift the focus, because too much time had been put into building this loophole where men could live without women. And with the curtain between celibacy and misogyny being what it was, well, the problem called for a myth. Nothing really new, a little reworking, a slight change in the line of focus, and a wedding and a miracle might just do it. Mothers, weddings, and wells go together so well. Good box office. But who was the groom and who was the bride? A mother could be ignored. Everyone had a mother. But a wedding meant a bride. And a bride wedged open the door to marriage, and marriage meant living with women. Women. The horror of the tonsured masses. Yet to preserve the luxury of wombless fertility there was no other way. Tradition was dictated by example, and examples had to be followed or they wouldn't be traditional. So from the sands of a fishing village onto the pages she was slandered. Like a penguin at a zebra wedding, like the boss's wife at a cocktail party, like cheese on a fish fillet, risky at the best of times, suicidal with dealing with the deities, and definitely taboo in Barcelona. But then any genocided belief suffers when beaten too far from subtlety. Because the definition of cholesterol is left to those with the biggest whisk. And so it was, through their words, she went from what she was, a corruption of the spiritual that had to be sacrificed, albeit wrapped quite tightly in a heresy with Gnostic overtones, to a bearer of sin that sought redemption. Not to keep the bridge to the light, but to justify these pseudo-religious spas, these closets of narcissism wrapped around reflection pools. And just like the finger sandwiches that attract chubby debutantes to third base, or the dozens of so-called deviled eggs devoured in the bleachers, when the Lindy is hopped, the first thoughts are always cross-culturally feminine. Creation, get it? At least until somebody forgets to dry the pickles. Then the bread becomes soggy. A caterer's pretension, if you ask me. And whatever happened is covered in mud, and statues have to be painted, and the status of saints rewritten, because despite all the office politics and hoopla over who walked on the water cooler, she was there when everything happened. She was privy to secrets. She was intimate. She was the first. And there are truths on pillows that fail on canopies, like thou shalt not diss the divinity's squeeze, one of the big ones, a no-brainer, you would think, if only they had read between the paragraphs. And let us be clear, it was a high-stakes game, the humongous light at the end of the enchilada, so to speak. Because in play were the metaphors of minds that had not been born in the final hours of this late summer afternoon. Cleats become nails. Julian the apostate and Celsus were backing the Nephilim, the crosstown rivals. And the Sessite shouted, "Play ball." Of course the angels started it, they always do in legend, and with their Barbie and Ken genitalia, who can blame them? But the jealousy of man kept it alive. If there was a point, it was that she witnessed and saw, and what was seen became light measured through its own in the midst of muck. But like a revolved film at a well-attended stag party, the light was projected onto a wall of testosterone fear, where the flickering images needed no script. Le petit mot ad nauseam. A no-class, flim-flam change from love to sex. Hey, it worked for the polytheistic pantheon, so why not see if it will sell in the limelight of Abraham? This week, and this week only, coming to a drive-in theology near you, son of thou shalt not, with a rose by any other name, and lots of tasteful begatting. The Bishop of Rome gave it 3 halos, but then he's a bachelor too. So hey-ho the Dario, from Calvinism in the dressing room to masochism in front of a low-watt bulb, the fans have been heard, and the casting couch of the spirit reupholstered, with rules for lining up for milk in kindergarten, most useful in keeping the rabble away from the jello and godless communism at bay. But not so effective in limiting the number of times the wheels on the bus go round and round, endlessly repeating the opening bars of a symphony dedicated to Spartacus' spiritual brother-in-law Sisyphus. Incidentally, 3 of my ex-girlfriends were also Spartacus. Let them figure out which ones. Because all this long while the fantasy mounts have been circling a rim of whimsy, principally in Gallia Narbonus's septimania, to those who don't frequent testudines, those locked shields above comfortable and well-made sandals, or the harlequin Galahads in search of a Paisley Grail stand and shout. Paisley Grail? Didn't she use the Sing Studio backup from Motown? So excuse the naughty innuendo of their post-Merovingian wit, with its bubbly penchant for doubling the entendre, because it seems that asking why only slows a decision. In fact, it makes the mistake more probable. And after all, the tune was unrecognized, despite its being well played by a slightly sharp-steamed calliope. You know the ones. Always to be found in the better manicured municipal gardens of sunny cities, brightly painted chips clinging to decay, horses and chariots, and with the occasional mythological creature of disbelief, essentially parallel to Venetian blinds of faith, or at least those conveniently controlled by matching strings, that faith that leads to the making true of belief, not choirs. But for those who don't want to know their former face, troubadour libidos in Bougainvillea have always been a powerful aphrodisiac. More deadly than the spicy duck that killed the last legitimate heir to the Corona Aragonum. Or was it that joke about what happens to even-toed ungulates that steal figs? Either way, it slew amongst the blue blood survivors of the opaque plague, and was always good for a rollicking guffaw to the rains of Castile, habitually occurring as they do on the steps of preferred enunciation. Ave who? This one goes to 11. Laugh if you will, but every city in the south of France still has one. Memories of a fleeing widow and gravity, echoes of Eurydice's faux pas, a dusky patron saint for the gypsies. Revenge of the Templars. Perhaps it might be better to forget them. I never liked cotton candy anyway. But the memory of their path is primal, and it must be admitted the up and down motion does distract the writers from most of the more macabre holocausts. Ironically, most often went on to painted horses, but it never kept them from stoning Jezebels, in particular those naughty tards wearing miniskirts after Labor Day. Hair shirts hate hussies, particularly when they wear high heels and date messiahs, and leave it to the French to make it sound dirty, the crooning of Marie Chevalier notwithstanding. Again and again, the point is missed. Folks, this ain't calculations to ensure the hurling of objects into space. There are truths on pillows that fail on canopies. She tripped and fell from the balance. It's kind of like a set of divine teeter-totters. One Mississippi, two Mississippi. And she fell while reaching. The official report, which has never been seen, said she was trying to feel the meaning of the void. A secondary kind of sameness to accommodate the priority of nature, I'll grant you, but salvation is in the not-forgetfulness, a cycle that has been and will be perpetuated. Ah, Thalotus, we hardly knew ye. Who? My point exactly. I heard he'd been hitting the hot fudge sundaes lately, and she was flung off when he sat down. This version, however, has never been proven, though it stands that the archons are not necessarily evil. They just live on the wrong side of the railroad tracks for tax reasons. And who do you think told the snake it was an apple? No specific fruit, in fact, was ever mentioned. Google it if you don't believe me. Curiouser and curiouser. For she's a jolly good ion which nobody would deny. At least until the Minots arrive. Then it's every metaphor for him or herself. The wheel ruts suddenly locus and all that. Again, if there is a wedding, they will eat cake and dance the hokey pokey. And if there is no cake, well, not to worry. The Irish will create a home for fallen girls in her name, and the chaos will define the balance. They say it gives meaning to the yearning amongst the embers, so what could go wrong? God will get over it. It's not like we trashed his mother. Well, some of us anyway. And eventually, the coffee will be served. Maybe slower if you take it with cream and sugar, but you can trust in the coffee. I wouldn't drink the water, though. No telling what the Greeks have hidden in their rivers, especially that lot on the Nile. And what about those Minots? The murderous scamps. They never miss a wedding, hidden between the gravy boats and oyster forks next to the best intentions of the guests who change their preferences from beef to fish at the last moment. They will arrive. They always arrive. They are the filling that comes from the knowledge of mud, the force that keeps the nagging in the current, and the source of those endless gestures of leaving plastic flowers on graves all summer. Though technically not related directly to any of this, it is arguably another sign of the syndrome, but mostly it's a personal irritation. Fading is so much worse than wilting. And they are also the hope. The Minots, not those hideous plastic flowers. Actually, they are the only hope. Again, the Minots. For there are truths on pillows that fail on canapes. They are what comes from forgetting the bride's favorite color. They are what comes when we forget that there is more to mud than dirt and water. And they are what comes to keep us on the painted horses. To smear the reputation of the world's significant other. Round and up and down, the silence in the sound of the cuckold clown. Think Zeus getting his freak on. What could go wrong indeed? Euclid's eunuchs will not be unique at this Eucharist, and incorrect answers will be penalized according to their shadows, but any answer left blank will be counted as wrong, though scored as negative 1/2. For some she fell, for others she was the fallen thought, and for others she was a danger. Paging Dr. Faustus, on Sundays there's a consummate quality to the air of town that floats you through the absence of traffic and into the perpetual properties of lilacs. Leaves and Aramaic speculation pause amongst obscure and barely remembered conjugations, while grammars, without the need of subject pronouns, silence thoughts and glaze the space between carrots. What's done is done, and hopefully missed. Those who pontificate across teeth never trash to it. They live inside of parameters as bad as ours. Maybe sin is time and space, and the nooks of mythology are filled with things that actually happened outside of these limitations. The truthful twins of what we weave through every day that existed up to the moment before we look back. All in all, not a bad place to shuffle along the mortal coil, till the miners arrive. But with any luck, they will obsess about spinach in the teeth of the maids of honor and kill the poets before the thank you notes are written.